We are back, and we are following that breaking news right here on MSNBC Reports from our investigative team that, in fact, 2 representatives from the Trump Organization say they expect charges to be filed against the organization as soon as tomorrow. This is key because the question on timing had been an open one since last week when we first began reporting this possibility. Let me bring in correspondent Tom Winter, who has been leading our coverage of this. Tom, tell me what you know.
Well, a couple of things, Hallie. I think as you reported, yes, those charges are expected tomorrow. And in fact, one representative of the Trump Organization telling our colleague Adam Reese that perhaps 2 p.m. will be the timing for those charges tomorrow. Hallie, a couple of things here. One, first off, nobody in law enforcement is commenting on this timing yet, though perhaps tellingly, nobody is telling us that it is wrong either. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I think, you know, if you had told me 2 months ago, 3 months ago, the Trump Organization is going to be charged, I would have said that's probably the final action in this. But that legal thinking and that legal calculus has changed. And so I think it's important to know some of the things that the Trump attorneys have been talking about recently, saying that they've been told that the investigation will be ongoing. I don't think this necessarily is the final action in this investigation tomorrow. It is a very significant one. It has the potential to have a tremendous impact on the Trump Organization. And here's why, Hallie. It is possible that banks, because this is now going to be an organization that is believed to be under criminal indictment, that banks may say, you know what, we want to call our loans. You guys need to repay us, and you need to repay us now. We don't know all the terms of those loans, and we don't know what redress the banks have. But this is potentially very significant for the Trump Organization, as it may impact their financing. It may impact their day-to-day business. And I think there's a thinking here, Hallie, that the amount of pressure this will put, not just, say, on an indictment of an Alan Weisselberg, who's the CFO, or any other individuals in the orbit, that the amount of impact that this could have on the organization could really pressure them and could pressure maybe other individuals who are no longer paid by them to perhaps come forward and speak.
Tom, I'm taking notes here because I have a couple of questions for you. First, do we know anything about the way that this announcement might come tomorrow? What is your sense? Would prosecutors hold like a news conference? Is that even in the realm of possibility, or is this more of a filing that we would see? Talk us through what your expectations are there as far as we know.
My expectation is that it's going to be a filing, Hallie, and if the reports are true and our reporting is accurate, in that this investigation is going to be ongoing. It has been the prerogative of Manhattan District Attorney Cy Vance to not hold press conferences and to not speak about it. I would assume that would be the case for tomorrow as well.
You talk about this investigation being ongoing. I don't know if you had a chance to see our interview that we just conducted here on the show with Jennifer Weisselberg, Alan Weisselberg's former daughter-in-law, just as this news was breaking. I know you were sprinting to a camera, so I'm not sure. But she did suggest that the grand jury would be seated for another 6 months here, and that she also expected this to be an ongoing process, that her lawyers, she said, are in constant contact with those individuals that are doing the investigation from the Manhattan DA's office. I wonder what you make of that, Tom, and what that says to you.
What I make of it is a couple of different things. This kind of dovetails to what I was speaking about before. I think this investigation has the potential to have some legs, depending upon who comes forward, who speaks with them. It's still ongoing. You know, Hallie, it's been 4 months and 6 days since the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has been able to have Trump's tax documents. I think that's important. So they've made a lot of headway in a short amount of time. But what other things might they figure out as they continue to go down these legal paths, particularly if anybody comes forward and begins to cooperate with them? I think that's important. I think there's more steps for them to go down. You know, this is a tactical thing. It's a tactical thing for Trump's attorneys to suggest what they've suggested, that this is very limited in scope and is very kind of a ticky-tack and an outrageous legal thing to file. They're obviously clearly trying to foam the runway and represent their client. On the other hand, we have heard nothing from law enforcement and nothing that leads us to believe that this will not be a significant action tomorrow. I actually think it might be. And in New York, while there are statute of limitations concerns, if you start getting into things like conspiracies and schemes, you can say, okay, this certain action happened within the last 2 or 5 years, whatever the statute of limitations might be. But, Hallie, you could bring in prior bad behavior to show that there's a pattern of this over time. So we shouldn't expect tomorrow's charges, I don't think, to be just limited to the last several years. I think that we're going to get a lot more information. That potential certainly exists, Hallie.
Tom, you talked about, and I want to pull on this thread a little bit, the tactical way that the former president's attorneys have been handling this. And I wonder, as you know, I've been in contact with my sources in the Trump orbit over the last, several days last week. and I don't want you to get out ahead of your skis, obviously, on anything you're hearing, but can you give us any insight as to the demeanor of some of these representatives of the Trump org as you are talking with them and our colleagues are talking with them, given that these charges are coming? Because by all accounts, these are not insignificant, and there may be, what some experts call collateral consequences, right? Things that aren't necessarily legal, but that affect the brand in a way that could be detrimental to the organization moving forward.
Yeah, I think the collateral consequences here is a big part of it. And so I've been focused on the law enforcement side of things. Our colleague Adam Reese, yourself, others have been speaking with folks in the Trump orbit. I think just based on their on the record quotes and the things that they're saying publicly, they're obviously trying to put a fire hose of cold water on what is about to come. That's a smart strategy as a defense attorney. I was speaking with Dan Goldman the other day. Actually, we were on with our colleague Nicole Wallace, where he talked about the times he's gone up against Ron Fischetti, who's the attorney for Trump in this whole investigation. And Dan Goldman, a former federal prosecutor, obviously led the impeachment the first time around of the president. I think this is somebody who's experienced. He knows New York media. He knows how to work the media. He knows how to put information out. So I think he's trying to get us to focus on certain things. Doesn't mean that he's inaccurate. Doesn't mean that his points are not valid. But obviously he has a client to represent. And when you talk about the collateral damage to perhaps the president and his children's wealth, in his words, an empire that he's built in the golfing, hotel, and private business community. When you look at all of that, or private property community, that could all be under threat. Perhaps as soon as 2 p.m. tomorrow, I think you're going to see a vociferous response from the president's representatives, from the Trump organization's representatives. And we'll just have to see, Hallie, when we actually get those charges, how detailed they are, what information we actually get in them, and then what that information tells us about the Trump organization. And then we'll see what the impacts are from there. An awful lot of unknowns, as much as we know about the Trump organization, as much as we think about this investigation. Remember, there are tens of thousands of pages of documents, actually much more than that, that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office is looking at, and that they were able to get after defeating 2 challenges from the president's attorneys in the Supreme Court, that they've been able to get here. So there's a lot of this that we just don't have any insight into because it's protected by grand jury secrecy, Hallie.